Hallo. De volgende sessie, the next session is brought to us by Leon van Oldenborgh, and you also brought a colleague, maybe, but I don't know your name yet, so I let you introduce.
I'll introduce him. This is Daniel Korsen, amazing creative technologist, code master. I don't know. Everything, and a good friend, which is the most important. Hello everyone, welcome to my talk. I think the title is possibly not really accurate anymore, but we'll work with it anyway. I think I will change this to gamification, because what we'll be mostly talking about is looking through matchmaking platforms through like a game design lens. I myself am a game designer, have a very strong game design background. And I also created 2 matchmaking platforms as art pieces, so we will be talking about that as well. And the first one we will actually do a live demo for. So everyone took a seat and is very comfortable, and now we can all stand up. And everyone should grab their phone. All right. Actually, I got a visual for this. Amazing. This is how it works. So, you can go to your Wi-Fi page. Also, this is our first time we do this demo like this, so maybe it will crash. We don't know. So, bear with us. Go to your Wi-Fi page and then find the free public Wi-Fi called **connect, and connect to it. Then it should open up to like the login page, or you should get a notification that says login to this network. And then once you're in, tada, you are now, once you press the tell me more button and the continue button, connected to someone else in this vicinity of the Wi-Fi network, because it's like a local thing. You get to ask each other's questions and find out who it is you are connected to. And since you are all connected to someone else you don't know, once you find each other, you can press a button and put in, one person has a code and one person has like an input field, so you can check. Once you found each other, you can sit next to each other for the rest of the talk and make a new friend today. How awesome is that? Amazing. Okay, so at some point you're gonna have to like walk around as well. This is like a little tip. All right, perfect. Now it's gonna be a little bit more theoretical, unfortunately. This is me. This is how I usually introduce myself when I give like a seminar or a talk. Very professional and business-like, but I thought for Valentine's Day, I will do a more personal approach. Amazing. This is some facts about me that are not professional-based. And the fun part about this talk is that I'm actually already in a relationship for like 6.5 years. So I've actually never used a dating app for myself. I've seen a lot of my friends use them. And this is also why I became a lot like interested in this format, because for me it looked like a very strange like dance that you're expected to do, or somehow like where else do you find a date nowadays? So this is how it started. And also I looked at it from my own like perspectives, game design point of view, and I'll share that with you. Shout out to my partner. Usually I don't introduce her, and she's almost never at my talks, but it's fine. It's because we both have very, very busy lives. She's a researcher in neurolinguistics, so works in Groningen, so that's also a bit far away. I also live there, but I came all the way down here for all of you. And this is some of my past works. Of course, these don't mean a lot, but what I wanted everyone to take away from this is that when I say I'm a game designer, that doesn't mean I make like shooting games. It's more like, usually I say like I'm a play designer, because most of the games, like I would say there are games because I think it's useful for them to be in that sort of system or structure. But most people don't describe them as games. They're more like playful installations or, I don't know, experiments. All of them interactive, though. That's the main point. So here's some highlights. Yeah, I don't know. We won't go into them, except two. So this one you just played, which is this one, and then the one above, clickedy.click, which I will talk about more later. But first, if we're looking at dating apps through a game design lens, what is that lens? And it's my lens, so it will not be very, how do you say it, scientific. It will not be peer-reviewed. It will just be my own perspective that's based on a lot of books I read on game design, and these are some highlights. I would recommend these to everyone. This one, I have to say I haven't read back to back because this is from like 1930s, and it's written like it's a book from 1930s. So it's mostly, this one sort of has the same points as this one, but then in actual understandable language. So for the people that want to read more about game design. And I will try not to fall into the trap that a lot of game designers do when they are giving a talk, which is, what is a game? How do you define a game? You can talk about this for like 2 hours. So I will just quickly give you a rundown from what I think is the most important things to highlight here. Usually, what we call a game is a system of rules. Wow. That sounds very dry. But what you basically have is an agent in this system of rules that is in a current situation, and then they want to reach a goal. The goal doesn't have to be like the same for everyone. It can be a given goal. It can be a goal you thought up by yourself. Anyway, you have to navigate this system of rules to achieve your goal. And the way you do this is by forming a strategy. And then you execute the strategy, and probably it goes wrong midway through, and then you improvise and get a new strategy. This is sort of how it works. You have a question?
Sorry, what is the difference between a game and any human political system?
Haha, maybe there isn't one. I'm not going to go into this because this is going to be like a very long discussion. But the other point, okay, so, okay. Let me first specify this a little bit. So a current situation is usually in a lot of games defined by like in-game resources. And this can be like anything. You can make anything a limited or unlimited resource. But then also outside of this, there is the resource of the player's time, which is like not an in-game thing. Also the player's motivation is, you can also see as a resource. And the players spend this resource to achieve their goal. All right. In between this current situation and the system of rules, there's the strategy forming happening, and this is always based on the current knowledge that the player has. So maybe they don't have a perfect knowledge of the game. If you play like a very complex board game, maybe your best strategy doesn't actually work because you maybe misunderstood a rule. Still, that's okay. Maybe even you think there's a rule, but you never actually tried this out, and you just assume that there's a rule. So for instance, like if I show you a picture of a wall in front of you, you think, oh, I can't walk through this, but if you don't actually try it, maybe you can walk through it. Maybe this is a fake rule. So it's always good to understand the system of rules, not as like a complete system, but how the player understands the rules at any point. Okay. Then the goal usually is like a combination of several goals. So for instance, a player wants to have fun, wants to complete the game, wants to make a friend in the game, wants to try something out and then reload. I don't know. This can all happen at the same time, so it's going to be like a little bit more complex than this diagram shows you. And yeah, what I was saying, it doesn't have to be like set by the designer. Usually you can point players towards a goal, like this is sort of the point of the game and this is what you want to achieve. but then the player always has the agency to like not go along with that goal. So this is a very systematic point of view. Then the other point of view, which I think is maybe more interesting, is the perspective of playing itself. And this is sort of the other part of the definition that most game designer theorists give, which is taking a playful approach to any activity. And a playful approach in this case is usually doing the activity for the sake of the activity, just because you like it or it's fun, without any motive or like wanting to make money or something like this. From here, some other things emerge, which is, again, you choose your own goals. So you think maybe the more optimal strategy is to walk in a straight line, but I don't like walking in a straight line, so I'm gonna just go over there and then over there and over there, and I will still achieve my goal, but it's not optimal. But for your own goals, it is optimal. Then a really cool thing that is described in Play Matters by Miguel Sicard is that carnivalesque behavior can happen, which is people that play a game with like very strange goals that are not aligned with other people's goals. So for instance, this happens a lot in, let's say, speedrunning community. So I don't know if you know speedrunning. It's like completing a game as fast as possible by breaking the game, which isn't really the intended way of playing the game, but it's still interesting. Another place where this can happen is in multiplayer games when people start trolling. This is, for instance, also a carnivalesque behavior because it's like not intended, but you can still do it, and the player gets some sort of satisfaction out of it. Then you have the idea that all of your actions have like feedback and results, and based on this feedback, you either do the same action or like different actions. And then the most important concept for me as an artist is the concept of the magic circle, which sounds really awesome. This is the greatest term people ever invented. But this is the idea that once you're in a game, you're not really in reality anymore. So you abide by different rules, which means that also any like consequences within the game don't really matter, because once you just exit out of the game, you don't take them with you to your real life. And this means that people are usually a lot more open to experimentation, because, well, there aren't really like any real consequences. Another thing that this makes happen is that any place where a game is played is appropriated for the game. So for instance, if some children are playing outside on the street isn't the street anymore, but it's a playground. And this also affects like people that are not in the game. So for instance, when a car goes by, they have to slow down, which is not a normal thing they do on this road. And they have to sort of play towards the rules of the children. Another really cool example given, again, in this book is the game Ninja. I don't know if you ever played this game. It was very popular in, like, I think, the 90s. I am guessing it's the 90s. I was born after the 90s, so. But this used to take over, like, entire offices. So it's a game with where movement is very important, and the playing area is therefore very important. And this took over, like, the entire canteen or, like, entire office building. And people, I don't know, their work was disrupted, but it's cool, I think. And I think the one thing that we need to take away for this talk is how do other players fit in and how do they interact with each other? Because for dating platforms, especially, what I find very interesting is that it's not a single player experience. Like, you're finding other people and they're behind some profile. You don't know who they are. Maybe it sort of feels like they're an NPC, like a non-playable character in a game, but they are actually other people and they have different goals, and this makes it very complex in an instant. You also see this in multiplayer video games or MMORPGs or things like this. And all of them have different goals, have different strategies, and you can sort of, they try to execute all of them at the same time. All right, so you made it through the theory. Amazing. What I think now is good to tell you is how I see games as a game designer, or how I approach them as like an artistic medium. And what I found out is that I like to think as games as a sort of performative dance. This sounds very flaky, but it makes sense in my head. So, on the one hand, you have the player who wants to have some choice or freedom, right? But if you give the player all of the freedom in the world, they don't do anything interesting, because this is already sort of, I mean, of course, we're limited a little bit in life, but you want to sell some sort of fantasy or like some way of making interesting situations happen that you don't usually come across. So this is where the designer comes in. So the designer, which is me most of the time in my games, makes up the rules, makes up the goals, makes up the context, and also chooses where it is that you can have your freedom and where it is that you are sort of brought somewhere by the designer, so that in the end there's sort of this beautiful dance where the player has some freedom and looks around and feels like they're in control and can make interesting decisions, but the decisions are actually interesting because the designer is taking them somewhere. All right, so then the question becomes, at what points do we want the player to actually think for themselves? So I am also, fun fact, a puzzle designer for escape rooms, and usually educational escape rooms. And this is what I really encountered there. So if you want to make something educational, you want people to have a big part of the thinking and the figuring out the puzzle. You want them to, this sentence didn't really work. So if you want to teach people something, you want them to think about the thing that you actually want to teach. So you don't want them struggling, like, how does this interface work? You want them actually to instantly be familiar with the interface and then think about, this is an interesting conundrum. How do I figure out the answer to this puzzle, which also leads to me learning something? Okay. Then the other one is that my goal is not to create a cool game. My goal is to create a cool experience, which is facilitated by the game. And I can point the player towards different directions through the game I designed. But in the end, the player is sort of also in control. So when I want to tweak something, I look at the experience. I don't look at the game itself. When do you give information? This is like a really important part, because this goes back to this understanding of the rules. So people base their strategy on how much information they have. And so if you control which information they have at different points, you can control how the strategy process is working out. And then usually what all my experiences are based on is this thought, where through being in control of the goal people want to reach, or pointing towards a goal, being in control of the rules that they need to navigate to reach that goal, and being in control over what information you give the player at any time, you can sort of try to design the thought process and the strategy forming process, because this is all sort of the thing the strategy is based upon. And then what I do in most of my art pieces is that this exact process is some parallel or a metaphor or something for like a thought process that is actually really happening in like some system in the real world. Okay, perfect. I hope everyone followed that. Then here we go, dating apps. This is what we're here for. So this is not, I would say, like scientific research. This is just me like wanting to create my own dating app and then looking at other dating apps, and these are just sort of notes that I found interesting. So this is usually the path you go down. I think we're all pretty familiar with this. Are we familiar with this? You can show hands. Okay, so you have the profile. You're creating this at the start of any app, or you need to create some sort of account. And then there is some matching algorithm happening, because, I mean, of course, there is your own user selection, so you judge other profiles and select which one you like, but you can't look at all of them because there's millions of them. So some computer algorithm is doing some selection. Then, this is what I think is like super interesting. There is this sort of game where you try to find each other's phone number or try to find out if they actually want to go on a date. And this one is like, there's like different cultures for this on different apps. Like what is expected for you to ask, who's gonna ask first, what are interesting opening lines, what are opening lines that really you shouldn't be doing. And this is really difficult to find out, I think, how to do like this perfectly. And then at some point you have the date, hopefully, if you decide to go through with it. So here are some thoughts, how I sort of wrote this down. So you have the players, which are the users of the dating apps, and they have their goals, probably either wanting a hookup or wanting a real lasting relationship, or they don't really know. This is mostly the goals. Then they have limited resources because it's like, you know, it's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to spend all this time on dating and finding someone. And then the question is, how can I use my resources most effectively by using tools? Okay, then you have the matchmakers, and they also have motives because, I mean, first of all, they want to match people, hopefully. This is sort of the base point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be making it, I think. Then they have a really important question to ask themselves is, what information is important for dating? So every matchmaker fills this in differently. This is basically, what kind of information can you put into your profile? How big, do we start your profile off with just showing carousel of pictures? This means that this information is the most important. Or do we start out maybe not showing pictures? And then they also have this question of, can I earn enough money to keep this service running? Maybe if you want to be really cynical, this is all they care about. And how do I retain a user base? Because if there's no users on your dating platform, then the dating platform falls apart. And this process is how I dissected to create my own dating app. So you have the profile making process, then you have the matching process, and then the dating process. These are some questions. I think we will skip this for now. Okay, so we have the big boy, Tinder. This is sort of, in my mind, the basic dating app. This is where it all began. This is what people have as a base, and then they make a unique version of this. And if you look at their App Store page, their thing that they're the most proud of is that they have the biggest dating pool and the biggest amount of matches. So I think this is interesting. And I mean, we all know Tinder, so I won't go into, I think I'm guessing you all know Tinder and how it works. I mean, usually for people my age, this is just not really any, people are not looking for serious relationships here anymore, which I also found interesting, or like not a lot of people. All right, then the more interesting one, which I think is a very interesting experiment, is Field. So I'm very much in queer communities, and this is the app they use a lot. And what I find most interesting about this one is that they have some sort of, I would say, radical specific information sharing. So you can put almost anything in your dating profile and be very, very specific on what you want, what you are looking for, and what you can provide, which means that a lot of people a lot of my friends that experience this app feel like this is more like transactional. So you're looking for the perfect thing that you want, maybe the perfect night of really nice sex with some interesting kinks involved. And then you found the person that also wants that, great. But there's a lot less, I'd just say, like randomness in here, because you select people like very much on like all these different categories. All right, then this one, which I also found a very interesting experiment, Breeze, where I think the most important takeaways here are that they limit your profiles per day. So all of these apps and a lot of other apps, they have an infinite list that you can choose from, which also means that you're setting the expectation that in this infinite list, there's one person that is your perfect match. But of course, if you look throughout history, I mean, people had relationships before they were able to access such a big dating pool. I don't know, people made it work. So maybe this isn't the way to go. This is what Breeze asks. This also means that because you have this limited resource, it's a lot more precious to you. So you really take in the profile very much and make a very informed decision. And then this also is because you get an instant date after this. So there's no chat functionality. It's just you already paid for a drink, so you better go there and find out who this person is, which also makes it, very intense if you decide to like match with someone. So from this we can take away, like, you can tweak a lot of things, and you can tweak the resources you get, you can tweak the incentives, you can tweak how fast you can reach your goal, what is your goal, to sort of tweak the overall experience. What I also wanted to hit on very quickly is that you can also look at other types of things, like TV shows. Great. They also have ulterior motives, and we will go into this on the panel, I think. But little sneak peek. What I find most interesting about Love is Blind is are we familiar with Love is Blind? I don't know. Are there people here that don't know it? Okay, I will go very quickly. What's the concept? Okay, the concept is there's a very limited pool. Whoops. Okay. So what I find interesting is that all of these platforms that I just talked about, they very much focus on the matching part. So you have to find your perfect person, and only then you can get to know this person. What I find interesting here is that you have a very limited pool, and there's a lot more focus on the actual dating part. So, I mean, maybe you don't need the perfect match, but it will become your perfect match once you actually get to know this person and you grow towards each other. This is also possible. And so this is basically, they have a very limited pool, and then they get to go on really short speed dates in these pods where they can't see each other. So the whole concept is love blind? That's the concept, because you can't see each other. So let's not focus on our appearances. But then what I find interesting is that this is only the start. So this is like the first 3 episodes of the season, and then they switch from this very far removed environment and context where maybe you see, I mean, you look at each other in this sort of rose-tinted glasses kind of way, but also you present yourself in this more rose-tinted glasses kind of way. I mean, if you smoke maybe 2 cigarettes per month, and then the other person says it's like a big ick for them if you smoke, then maybe you just won't say it, and you try to change yourself without saying this. I mean, we're all sort of trying to show the best side of ourselves, I think. But then they go on holiday or honeymoon, I guess, because they are married, or they are, what do you call it? Engaged. Yes, perfect. And this is already like one step closer to reality, so that they actually get to spend time with each other and see if they like each other. And also, all of a sudden, the appearance becomes like super important, and everyone talks about, which I think is also kind of funny. And then afterwards, they go to their own apartments, and suddenly they're back in the real world. And suddenly there's friends, there's family. Oh no, how do they like this person? Did I actually do something super strange by joining this program and deciding to marry someone? Of course, this whole format is created to create good television. This is the motive. I mean, it's also nice. I mean, I'm sure they want people to be like actual good matches, but the main motivator is to create good TV. So this is interesting to watch. I mean, this is also how they designed all these environments. So they also designed this common room where all of the people go after the dates, and then they talk about the dates, so there's more drama, which is good for television, maybe not good for the dating, who knows. And then there's also interesting things to watch, is that the players can become carnivalesque players if they're only there because they want to get famous. And then suddenly they have a different goal than trying to find the perfect partner. So you can see that this is sort of also gamified. Okay, we will talk more about this in the panel. Okay, happen, we will skip, but it's also interesting, geolocation. Okay, and then the actual things I created. Wow, we got there. So this is the one you just did. I created it with these lovely people. Here you see Daniel, special shout out. And actually this started as a student project of ours, so this is kind of interesting. It's been going on for like 3 years, and we've been slowly trying to find the perfect context and perfect ways of making these matches happen. Our motivators for trying to create this is that we found it difficult to make serendipitous encounters happen in public spaces specifically. So do people still meet each other? I mean, look around you. Did you actually already talk to the person you matched with just now, even though maybe you spent the whole day sitting here and this other person was also in the room? We encountered this when we were first going to like art festivals, and we were like, oh no, how do we talk to people? Everyone already seems to know each other. So we look to our phone and look for public Wi-Fi, and this is where our idea started. So we also asked the question, why have we come to expect free Wi-Fi in public space? I mean, if public space is meant to for us to meet each other and talk about ideas, why is there a connection to the internet there, and why do we want it to be there? Yeah, I think I talked about these two. Okay, so we focused, I would say, on the dating part, even though, like, it's not a dating platform, it's more like to make new friends. And we really focused on this idea of sharing limited information. So if you only know that this person likes movies, how do you know what this person looks like? Maybe there is a question about how old do you feel? Does this mean that you are actually looking old or looking young? This is sort of the aim of the project. So the questions we had, which you, I think saw, are sort of weighted in separate categories. So we have questions that are aimed to like help you physically find each other, because otherwise it's like really difficult and impossible. And then we have ones where you get to know the person, per se on. Okay, perfect. And then one of our main goals, which is very tricky to do, is to actually get people off of the platform and then continue their connection. So we try to sort of find talking points. Also, when we show this at festivals, we say like, oh, are you excited to go to this specific workshop? So maybe you go there together is our hope. What is interesting is that we chose to do random matchmaking. So we are not at all looking at any preference or like any algorithm, whatever. It's just purely random who connects at what time. Because we think this is more interesting and it's more like serendipitous. And then one big thing is also how do we account for bad actors? So first we wanted to do just questions and then you answer with chat, but then a lot of places we wanted to exhibit thought, okay, but what if there's like a random person that's not connected to the festival goes to this public space and bad things can happen? Then we're like, oh yeah, shit, maybe bad things can happen. So we locked it down to get to only like yes, no, and gradient questions. This is how this looks like if we when we design it. So it's just like a sort of experience. And then in here you can really easily draw like what information do you give at what time. So this is sort of the game design we talked about. And then, from experience, when we actually showed this is the two main questions that we're still working on. So turns out, when you just drop this at the festival and hang posters everywhere, people actually don't really want to meet new people at festivals, and they just want to go to festivals with their friends. So we had like 3 matches at one festival, which is sort of sad. So we also Yeah, and one other question is like, how do we get people to actually form this connection and walk away with this connection? And one really fun thing we did at one point is that you got a voucher for a free drink. And this worked very well, I think, because then people had to stand together in line to get this free drink and started talking, and then they shared the drink together, and then like they're off our platform. And then we're still looking for the right context. So we thought maybe this is a more interesting way to do it, where all of the people are at the same time connecting, because previous versions we did we put it in a random spot, and there's a lot of people not connecting, and then maybe 2 people are connecting. So that's sort of the difference. Okay, I think it's almost time. So come talk to me afterwards about this project. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I went over time a little bit. It's also an interesting project. It's about more the data side of things for dating apps and also data in general. And yeah, it's not really about the dating again. It's more the form that we really liked. And the key point for this app is that you're first clicking around to create your profile. And your profile is just your clicking data. So there's no picture, no gender, nothing. Just you clicking on a website. And then this is your your profiles that you're analyzing. Wait, let me. So you just can look at someone else's screen, basically. This is how you decide who you want to go on a date with, which means that we're asking the main question, how personal is this data? So that's sort of our key takeaway here is the data that is not personal data under law, which means, under law, the data that is defined as personal is data that can lead back to you specifically, so like your phone number or your name. But just how you click on the internet is not personal data, but it is sort of personal feeling data. And if you can actually take away what the personality is of this person clicking around, maybe it is personal data. And because it's a dating app, you of course want to get to know the person behind the screen. That's sort of all you do on dating apps. So that's why we made it a dating app. And then you actually got to see the user, which is great, because we were thinking it's not the point of the app, but it sort of feels fake if you're not actually matched to someone. But yeah, I can't go into more detail, but maybe it will be shown somewhere again at some point. We will see. And you can talk to me afterwards always. So.
Maybe you earn stickers.
Yeah, you also get stickers. So we try to take it also a more offline way, so people that actually went through this experience could put on their sticker and say, wow, I'm a wild clicker. Isn't that great? And then you can talk to each other afterwards. I also have mine on my laptop again. It's a great display piece. Okay. But I don't have those stickers. I do have the stickers for the Connect, so I will hand them out now. And this will be the end of the talk.